Without sounding like I'm beating a dead horse here, I think that's what I'm most concerned about, is that people are going to be like, not again. Here's the deal. 5 years ago, I went to North Korea to play hockey. It was, as you can imagine, a very unique trip, and one that, quite frankly, as cliche as this sounds, changed my life. It has been 5 years since I went on this trip. The more that I've thought about why, like what motivated me and what my experience was getting over there, the more I was curious if that was just me or if the other participants felt that way too. So I tracked them down, I set up a Zoom meeting, and we just kind of dove in.
It's misty.
Look at all these people! All these people, so punctual.
Craig, gosh, another face I have not seen for 5 years.
How you doing, man? And guys?
I'm the old guy here. It takes me a while to get used to this stuff. I don't do it very often.
The goalie.
Our fearless goalie.
Yo, I can talk now.
Yeah.
And I am on the tram coming back from hockey practice because I timed this poorly.
I just noticed you're on a train. All right.
Hey, look, you guys are underground.
It's important to understand that, like, 5 years ago, as mysterious as North Korea is now, 5 years ago, it was much more mysterious. For example, if you go on YouTube now and you search North Korea, you'll find a ton of documentaries, a ton of vloggers who've done cool stuff. There's just a ton of content, but in 2017, there was nothing. In fact, there was only one series. There was a Vice documentary series. It was a very dramatic documentary. It's a weird word to say. All I had to go off of was the media that was available to me. And all of that media was very dramatic. Like, you can't film. You're gonna get arrested. It is very dangerous to go there. So naturally, I was anxious. When I went into the trip, I was pretty, Scott was helpful, gave me a lot of information. I had a ton of questions, but I was really nervous. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 to being like sheer panic or, whatever you want to attribute that. Where were you on that scale from 1 to 10? Like, were you nervous? Were you anxious?
I would say it was probably more of a 4.
Okay.
Because I felt, maybe this is just like naive, but I felt more safe in the numbers that we had. So, and then also it was okay for me knowing that Scott had been there before. And I think the scariest part for me actually was like the first night in the hotel, because like all of you guys got to team up with somebody and you were staying with someone, and then they're like, Misty, good news, you get to sleep by yourself. And I was like, all right, sick.
Did you then did anyone here go through their room looking for cameras or recording devices? Because I definitely did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I also set up things to like throw, but like, if I was to wake up in the middle of the night, I set up things beside me to like throw if I had to.
Oh my, what kinds of things did you have available in your arsenal?
I don't know. I think one of them was a lamp.
Yeah. The old lamp attack.
It was, I don't know if it was Jean-Marie, but it was like the French guys were beside me in the room, and I remember them looking at me before we went in. They're like, hey, if you need anything, let us know. And I was like, okay, my plan is to just throw something at the wall so hopefully they wake up, or at least like know that this is it. But nothing happened, and I didn't see any cameras. So
I approached it very, very seriously. And I didn't talk about this in my video, but like before I went over there, I did a lot of things that I didn't typically do before a trip. I created like a Word document of a Doomsday scenario, and I sent it to 2 of my friends, and I said, it kind of outlined, hey, if you don't hear from me by this date at this time, start doing these things. And it listed my parents' contact information. It listed the embassy, the Beijing embassy and the Swedish embassy in North Korea, all their contact information. It listed, I did research as to the senators and congresspeople from Minnesota and their contact information, because I outlined like, hey, the next step in this process is going to be getting some kind of diplomatic envoy together. So I really outlined all this stuff. And beyond that, when I left my apartment to go to the airport, I printed out a piece of paper that was like, it was a letter to my mom and dad. It said, hey guys, if you're reading this, bad news. Something's happened. Here's how you pay my rent. Here are the passwords to pay my credit card bill. Here's how you pay my utilities. Here's all the contact information of people who know about the trip. Here's where I'm supposed to be. Yada, yada, yada. So I put together this kind of doomsday scenario before I left. And it was really heavy. That was the first time in my life where I packed up, prepared for the worst, right? I wasn't expecting the worst because after doing my own research, I felt comfortable enough to go. Bottom line, I was like, I'm 98% sure that I'm going to be safe and I'm going to be fine. But I was as prepared as I could have been for that 2%. And that was really weird.
I can't remember if I don't think I was nervous. Maybe I was excited about arriving. And when we arrived to the train station, it felt so like surreal. As Misty said, that we had been there, or the group had been there 1 year before. So maybe that was the thing that called my mind.
And when I got to Pyongyang, like that 2% was in the back of my mind. And I was very, very anxious. And I will never forget getting off of the plane and walking into the, from the plane to the terminal, to the gate. And I saw my first North Korean soldier. Military uniform, the guard. Let's call it a guard. And it dawned on me like, okay, I'm here. There is nothing I can do now. I'm in it. And it was a very intense anxiety. Scott, I muted you because you were really loud, but I've since asked to unmute you because I'd love to hear your thoughts, like hearing all this stuff. You know, did you feel that kind of, I guess, responsibility of like, hey, a lot of people are worried about something and like I'm the last, I'm kind of in charge of keeping them safe. Like, talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. It's something I take really seriously because obviously if someone's going to put their trust in me to come on a trip, especially to a place like North Korea, I want to make sure that I take it seriously and that I get them all home safely. Having been to Korea, I think that was my 4th trip at that point. So I was pretty comfortable taking people into North Korea. So it was more just trying to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and that no one's still a little bit nervous. But I think for the most part, this group, after the first maybe 24 hours, everyone had settled in quite nicely. And it was a pretty easy trip from my perspective.
Yeah. I felt like good after each meal, not like too heavy or anything. So you're asking yourself, why did I decide to go? Simply put, I can summarize it into 3 reasons. Some of these are going to sound more compelling than others. The first of which is I wanted to play against a national hockey team. That opportunity to me was so crazy. With all the information you had when you first found out about this trip, what was something that stood out where you were like, okay, I want to do this because of this?
I was kind of an interesting approach to the trip. I kind of found out quite soon before we actually left. So Scott's brother had reached out and said, we need some extra people for this hockey program. And the way that he had described it, there wasn't a single point that he included that made me not want to go on the trip. The opportunity in itself was, uncomparable to what you're usually gifted in your life. So for me, I think it was an opportunity to go to a place in the world where, most of the community can't even visit. It's not accessible, and it's a large part of our news. So it's great to get a first-person account of what's going on in the country.
Secondly, I wanted to explore the most mysterious country in the world. Again, it was a very mysterious place, and I just found it so fascinating, the combination of the two.
Cool. Very big.
And finally, the most important piece, and something that I think a lot of people were wondering, I went to North Korea to play hockey because I thought it was a remarkable story. And I only went after it was assured to me that I could film everything. Like the second Scott told me I could bring my GoPro, I could film, there would be no issues filming the hockey, I was like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And it immediately dispelled all of the notions I had about the country, which was that you can't film.
One thing I remember too that I was kind of surprised to see, we went, I don't remember the name of the square where they do all the fanfare and the exhibitions. We were going by that, and they were practicing for marching, and they had like 10 guys in a row with their feet tied to boards as they were practicing.
That's
to,
right.
to march in unison. I was, that was kind of funny to see and surprising that, we would be able to witness kind of the rehearsal for something that was supposed to be, so well choreographed. So
This, like Morgan said, this is a chance to get to someplace very few people get to. And most of the people I've noticed that have been on these trips are risk takers to a great extent. They want to do things that are unusual and novel, and I like to be around those type of people. I enjoy the last trip. I didn't play hockey, because and the fact is I didn't play in Turkmenistan either because I took my son with me to play. But I liked being around those type of people doing those type of things, and so yeah, it's fun for me.
But it became quite obvious to me that there was another side of the story to going to this country. And once I learned that I could film, that was the final piece to me, because I very much wanted to tell a cool story. I was like, I have to.
No, there's not a lot of traffic. Oh, there's a motorbike. First one I've seen.
I'm not a well-traveled man. I haven't left Canada since. I have been a few places, but I know that some of you guys are really international, and I have a lot of respect for that. I haven't had the same opportunity or lifestyle. So for me, it was a very, very unique thing, and just something that I couldn't pass by.
Here comes the tricky part. And that is articulating how this trip impacted my life. After thinking about it a bit, here is what comes to mind in terms of how it has changed my life. And the first way that it impacted me was it changed the way that I fundamentally look at the world. And by that I mean, going into North Korea, I had been inundated with, let's call it knowledge about the situation. And I had been conditioned to have certain beliefs about the people there, not the government, because the depiction of the government is entirely accurate. Dictatorships are bad. They are very bad. It's never a good thing when one person has total control over a vast majority of people. That goes for you too, Putin. And the simplest way to explain what I'm trying to articulate is I came away from that trip looking at the world as a big piece of pie. And what I realized is, objectively speaking, for the most part, it's not black and white, good and evil. And the reason for that is because everybody wants the same thing. They want a big slice of the pie. It helped me realize, I genuinely believe the vast majority of conflict, the source of it is the desire to be in control. Everyone just wants a bigger piece of the pie. That was a weird takeaway. I'd love to hear from everyone else too. What was your reaction when you told people when you got back, good or bad?
I didn't tell people. It lasted about 2 days, and then I stopped talking about it altogether. I was disappointed in the reaction of people. I'm certainly not going to get political, but where I am in Montreal, It seems to be pretty black and white in terms of we're the good guys and these are the bad guys. This is the way people see it, I guess. So I wanted to talk about hockey. I wanted to talk about you guys, the friends I met there. I wanted to talk about. I was very positive. I'm still very positive about it, and basically people were hoping to hear about the things that we hear on TV, and they wanted to know how many what horrifying things I had seen, and did I meet the supreme leader and all of that. So really, really soon enough, I mean, I kept it to myself.
That was a weird takeaway because, I think it pushed me to be more objective about my own sense of nationalism, right? Like, how does the United States, what are the things that the United States does to defend their slice of the pie? They do some not so nice things, and they critique other countries for doing those same things, obviously because they are defending their slice of the pie. I get it. But it was really weird to play with this notion of is it a question of right or wrong? Or is it unfortunately just a question of wanting to protect your slice of the pie?
Actually, kind of building on what Felix was talking about earlier, this was, the first time we went to North Korea, we got a little bit of media coverage, but it was very, kind of single paragraph type thing, very high level. This was the first trip, mostly because of your video, but where they actually really did lengthy articles and a lot of press coverage. And it really opened my eyes to how the media works. So for example, on one of Felix's interviews, him and Jean-Marie, I believe it was on CTV, maybe CBC, but they cut it down to a 2-minute thing, and they still managed to make time to splice in pictures of Dennis Rodman and try and make that comparison. And I just remember thinking, if they're doing a story about a new cruise ship that's launching, no one's putting in images of the Titanic in the middle of it. There seems to be this thing with North Korea where people are determined to not have any positive stories come out of it, regardless of fact. And it's something that kind of continued as we kept doing trips after this one. But yeah, that's one big takeaway I remember from this trip in particular.
James was mentioning that we might be able to do a home visit. Is that today or tomorrow? Home visits? Yeah. Is that possible or no?
But I think the biggest takeaway was knowing that oftentimes it is the people in charge who ruin things for the everyday person. This is super cliche, but it's true. The average human is the one who gets screwed over. Whoever is at the top and making the decisions is doing it at the expense of a population. And it was kind of sad because the population of North Korea, the people were great.
One thing, actually now I remember when we were having a dinner and we had some people from the hockey organization of North Korea. I don't remember any titles, but one of the persons who was sitting on our table, actually at first he wasn't speaking English at all. And we were communicating through our guide. She was translating for us, and at some point of the conversation, he found out that we are from Finland, and he started talking English without the translator right to us. And he knew that Finland is also a good hockey country, and I think that Finland had just even won the World Championship in hockey. So that kind of breaked the barrier, and yeah.
I remember that, Hank.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that story, but I was sitting with you, and he was faking that he didn't know English the whole time. And then he found out that Hank was from Finland and was like, oh yeah, let me ask you questions. I'm interested now. And I remember being that was a power play move right there.
The second way it impacted me was that it changed the way that I look at myself. This trip was the first time that I made a decision that I knew everyone thought was crazy, but I charted out a plan for it, and I executed that plan, and it worked out pretty well. And it taught me the importance of like going out into the world and finding interesting stories and telling them and learning how to tell them. It changed the way that I look at risk in a way too. A lot of people thought I took a really dumb risk, and I don't blame them. My parents were so mad at me. And to this day, like, I understand it, I get it. And it was really hard for me to stick to my guns, so to speak, knowing that people thought I took this dumb risk. But I can also confidently say that my life would be vastly different had I not taken that risk.
Time of my life. I'm so glad I did this. It showed me all that you can get from traveling, all that you can learn, and how it can open your mind, and how you can make friends in a group by having a common goal, even though they are in the end perhaps different people than you are, coming from different perspectives and areas.
All of the things I've done that have had meaning in my life since this trip, they are because of it. It gave me the confidence to go out into the world on my own and to pursue things that I find interesting and to break away from convention, to quit my job, to start my own business, to start writing and directing my own commercials. All of that confidence came from this one trip where I went to a place that millions of people had told me, don't go there. There's no good can come of this, but something great came of it. And that's a really profound thing to experience.
You know, I think that it really gives you a great perspective. You know, I made connections with, you know, even what's going on in the world right now with misinformation. I think that there's always two sides to a story. And, you know, we experienced, obviously there's a lot of famine, a lot of issues that go on in that country. But, you know, we were able to leave with a positive note that there is hope, that we can have connection and, you know, use sport to really push forward with our connections with hard to reach places. It's amazing, you know, like the trips that Misty lists and the trips that Scott offers and the tours for connections through sport. It's just endless parallels that you can draw in your life. And, you know, I think that we'll all be forever thankful for the experiences that we shared together.
It's so ironic. Like, there was this whole joke, you know, among the trip participants, but even all of my friends and people I talked to afterwards, they were like, you didn't experience anything real. You were just on a conveyor belt. And it was accurate, right? My trip to North Korea was manicured. I was on a conveyor belt. The great irony, though, is that before I went to North Korea, I was kind of on a conveyor belt in life back home. I had a job. I went to it every day. I kind of liked it, but I didn't know why. I was chasing a promotion and then another promotion. I wasn't actively asking myself, what do I like? What do I want to do? And it was going to a place like North Korea that allowed me to step outside of that conveyor belt. And I think about what my life might be like if I never went. And I'm unfortunately quite confident I'd still be on that conveyor belt. And I'm not saying that in order to reevaluate your life, you need to go to North Korea.
It kind of launched me to start seeking out international tournaments with different teams. Like, we ended up playing in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan with Jean-Marie and Lasse from this trip. And then also we ended up going to India and setting a Guinness World Record with Scott and Hanka later on. We just came back from Egypt. We were there. And so like this trip kind of sparked a lot of friendships and also contacts to traveling around the world. And then I was just in Finland for like around Christmas time, and I ran into Lasse again with Sean. So like in this last 5 years, I've been able to see all of my friends from North Korea, sounds weird to say like that, all over the world. And it's like, I've always loved traveling and I loved hockey, and I didn't know that I could put those two together until this trip.
I walk away from this trip firmly believing that if you want to figure something out about yourself, start by asking yourself that simple question. What do I like? What do I find interesting? What piques my curiosity? And then pushing yourself to get closer to it. And honestly, to take yourself out of your comfort zone in pursuit of that curiosity or that desire. Because that process, I think, is the fundamental truth of human growth and development.
Mark, how about you? When you look back on this trip, like, what do you take away from it? What comes to mind?
Well, like I said, I like to travel. I like to do these types of things. And the one thing that came about is that I like the way Scott puts these trips together, in the fact that at least one night you're out in the native land, with the real people. And that's always great, even if there are 30 people sleeping in one room.
Hey, you got the bed.
I got the bed.
Yeah, this experience was profound, and I'm so sick of using that word, but it changed my life. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to have done it. And I'm thankful to have a bunch of new friends from across the globe. And Mark, our 71-year-old goalie, who's now 76. I mean, I can say I know a 76-year-old goalie. That's cool in of itself. This trip changed my life for the better. I'm happy I did it. It helped me appreciate one thing. The world is vast. It is full of places and great people. And the more that you can go out and meet them and find them and introduce yourself to them and learn from them, the more you can learn about yourself and the more you can grow. But yeah, I'm not saying you got to go to North Korea to grow. Hello, Hanka.
Hey.